Every once in a while, you get a chance to open up the window, lift the hood, and see inside a well run, maybe factory, maybe machinery, but better yet, the mind of somebody who has run an incredible race. And the reason you want to do that is you can steal ideas from them, right? You can take their habits, and if you were to apply it to your life, think about how the next 20 or 30 years would run. So I always like to say, observe people who are older than you. Don't compare people who are your same age. So Rick Melmer, who has done many things through education and teaching people about important educational things, especially leadership, is the guest on the program today. And it's going to be an amazing ride. For 1 hour, you get to watch me pick this guy's brain, take notes. It's an amazing ride. Well, one of the great things about life, you get a chance to meet people. And I think it's important to, in life, find out what you can learn from everybody. Every once in a while, we bring in people and they're, super famous, and that's good. And we should try to do that. But what do those people really have to offer us? It depends. I mean, what do I know about being famous, right? I would much rather talk to people who I find to be wise and to see what we can learn from them. Now, Rick Melmer, I'm not saying you're not famous regionally. You're known in our area. But your story is a fascinating one. And before we talk about you, I always send out questions to people just sort of as an icebreaker. Did you get the Jeopardy sheet?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the Jeopardy looks like Jeopardy, and you get a chance to pick any question you want, and we'll just see which one you select. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do Bible banter for 200, Jeff.
Bible banter for 200.
Yeah.
What is your favorite verse these days?
Yeah, these days, and I'm glad you put the these days disclaimer in there because it changes from month to month or every 6 months. But right now it's Psalm 16:6. The boundary lines have been drawn for me in pleasant places. I enjoy a delightful inheritance is the verse. And it's just, it has meaning for me because as I get older, I'm probably more, like many of us are, more reflective. And you start to realize the blessings that you have, the rich heritage that you were raised with, and how all of that has contributed to the life that you have today. So the first part of that verse, the boundary lines have been drawn for me in pleasant places, is really kind of a cool way to think about, I've got a pretty good life. And that's how I'm feeling right now.
I find that as we get older, the tendency is to become maybe a little bit, maybe disillusioned or disappointed. And I would say the number of people who have your outlook is fairly rare in the fourth quarter of life. Would you agree with that, or have you noticed something different?
Yeah, I think, I would probably agree with that. I think there's times where I'm trying to really be intentional about not doing this, but I feel like there are times when people get to the fourth quarter. I liked your term. That's correct. It's kind of like, this is my time. And now your job is to listen to me. I'm going to tell you the way things ought to be. I'm going to tell you, about the good old days and how bad things are today compared to the way they were, back. And instead of kind of, Dale Carnegie would say, talk in terms of the other person's interests. And I don't feel like we do a good job of that, especially as we get older. I think we kind of think this is our time to get the microphone and and let everybody, and it's everybody else's turn to listen to what we have to say. And I'm trying to do a little better than that. So.
Now, and isn't that interesting? I think it's great to say that it's always an effort. Just as we get older physically, we get a little more stiff. And so we have to work these stretching exercises. And let's just say that life is a journey of trying to build character. And that would be, endurance and discipline and patience and courage and confidence and contentment, which I feel is probably one of the more elusive things, which is strange considering what a great life many of us as Americans have had.
Right.
My daughters will talk about first world problems. I mean, holy cow, I only get 67 channels on my TV, and I don't want to pay for the 14th service, right? And I
Right.
had to wait at the doctor 4 hours for the medical pill that saved my life, right? Holy cow,
Right.
my kid that would have died of pneumonia 40 years ago. I can't believe that this blah, blah, blah miracle pill cost me $16 out of my copay. All of this kind of stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
So, is there like a regimen or an exercise that you go through to stay in the boundaries that you're talking about in Scripture of God has placed me in the good places? How do you exercise that to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, some things that I put myself in the company of other people that are trying to do the same thing. You
Hmm.
know, the old saying, you know, you're the average of your five closest friends or whatever. I do feel like there's some truth to the idea of, you know, surrounding yourself with people that hold and share some of the same values that you do. I'm married to an optimistic woman, have been for 42 years. She's been really good for me to think about life in a better way versus in a way that's less than. And then just staying in the Word, trying to be really intentional about filling my mind with things that are uplifting. I try to read books that sort of help me take a more optimistic view of life, and then of course the Bible does that as well. So I guess what I read and who I spend time with, Jeff, are probably the two things that I try to be really intentional about, and then just really try to work on my own physical health, which I think then contributes in so many other ways to making me feel better about life in general because I just feel good physically. So try to stay really active and kind of do the right things physically, and I think a lot of other things have a way of lining up after that.
Well, you'll see I'm in a suit and tie today.
Yeah,
Uh,
you look
I,
good, by the way. So
thank you. Well, please, I was hoping that would come up earlier in the interview, but okay, I had to fish for it, but that's okay.
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
I tell people I see a lot of game film and I watch a lot of live. So this is a number of years ago, but this guy, he smokes cigarettes. You're not supposed to, right? And I suggested, I told a story that would maybe say, this really quickly, this guy who smoked at the age of 27, and he was having a stress break. He worked at a funeral home, and a friend of his comes up the sidewalk, and he's in his 80s, and he's got an oxygen tank and a walker. And he says, "Do you believe in time travel?" Which is a weird question to ask a 27-year-old. And he said, "Well, I mean, like a time machine." And he said, "Yeah, where would you go?" And the kid says, "I don't know, maybe to see the Declaration of Independence, sign something like that. What about you? What would you do?" And then the older guy says, "I know exactly what I would do. I'd go back 50 years and I'd quit smoking.
Hmm.
Hey, maybe you can be my time machine and tell me how it works out." Well, I'm not trying to judge, but I am trying to say, hey, what if? So I told this story to the group of people. This is a number of years ago. And the guy who's running the screen in the back says, one of the guys in the back, as I'm telling this story, looks at his buddy and goes, "Pff," and he gives a gesture that I won't give on this, even though I could give all the gestures. The gestures was basically, "Up yours, pal.
Hmm.
I'll do what I want." And I laughed because here's the thing. You don't, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do because they get to do whatever they
Right.
want to do.
Right.
But I do have the chance to study people, take notes, and say, what are they doing? And can I do that? So that's a long preface to say, let's say I'm going to the College of Rick Melmer, and you are a guy who you look spectacular for 42 years old. I'm just going to tell you that right now, Rick. But let's just say I'm studying you like a book, somebody who's gone into the fourth quarter and has these. So tell me what your daily regimen is, and maybe I can steal some of that.
Uh, well, I mean, no 2 days, as you would know, Jeff. No 2 days look exactly alike, but there's patterns for sure. And my wife and I have a devotion time in the morning.
What
We
time do you
even
get
did
up?
that when our children were young. They
What
weren't
time?
always, they were sometimes hostages instead of willing participants in that. But we did that from the time that our children were young, and we still do it today. That includes, scripture and a devotional. And then we spend some time in prayer for both our own family members and then friends and people that we care about and ministries that matter to us. And then there's always at least 30, if not 60 minutes of exercise in every day. And it's almost without exception. I mean, occasionally it doesn't happen, but it's a pretty rare day when I don't get 30 to 60 minutes of, and I used to be running and now it's walking and, some sort of exercise. And then the third component is the reading part. I love to read and I love to learn. And so that's a part of every day that I exist, is I'm trying to figure out what I can learn that I can turn around really and teach to other people. I still enjoy teaching. I do some leadership training, and reading is kind of one of the ways that I gain insight that I can turn around and try to teach other people about what I'm reading. The part that I need to work on is the social part. I've talked about body and mind and spirit or soul. Those are three. The fourth quadrant is the social part, and I have to work at that. I tend to be a bit of an introvert. I could be pretty comfortable to be on my own. I have my wife, and we're empty nesters now, of course, but just the two of us. Yeah, I have to sort of work at being social and engaging with people, because I could probably too easily retreat and be on my own a bit too much. And so the social part is one of those areas that I try to incorporate as much as I can, but it's a bit more of an effort for me.
Any strategies in that regard that would be helpful for people who find themselves introverts in that way?
Yeah, good question. And I would say put yourself in groups, like a Bible or a book group. They do the monthly book groups where you meet, you read a book together. I'm in two men's groups, so that means that 2 times a week, for 2 hours a week, I'm in the presence of other men that I'm connecting with in we're their Bible studies, but at the same time we're still together socially. And then my wife and I try to be a little more intentional about just reaching out to couples and meeting them for dinner and that sort of thing. We don't have a regular rhythm there, but we try to do something on a regular basis there. Those would probably be the suggestions I would have. Is if you don't initiate it, it likely won't happen.
Right. Yeah, we look at progressive commercials and we laugh at them as being.
Well, they're good commercials. I love them.
I just think, wait a minute, that's smart. That guy, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I
right.
am that guy in the hardware store. What you working on, right? I'm the guy who's talking to guys at the pump.
Yeah, and that's. I just finished reading a book, Jeff, that you'd probably really enjoy. The title of it is "Eat Your Ice Cream," is the name of the book. But one of the chapters, he has 6 ways to live a happy and fulfilled life. Right?
Is and one of them eat your ice cream?
Well, yeah, and one of them, the whole point is like you can have a little bit of ice cream, just don't eat too much ice cream. Like the idea of like everything should be in moderation. But one of the things he talks about is like talk to the people next to you. If you're waiting in line, talk to people. If you're getting on an elevator, if you're sitting in an airplane, if you're whatever, engage in conversation. Now, if people don't want to talk to you, then they won't, and it'll end quickly. But you might make a new friend or whatever, and that's probably an area you do well in. Yeah. Sounds like you do. I would not do well in that area. Like it's one of those things where if I'm next to somebody, I'm going to go, well, if they say something to me, I'll say something to them. And I'm reading this book and going, I've got to be better about just going, so how is your day going? Or, just engage. You never know what you're going to come up with or find out about people if you don't engage.
I knew a man who was extremely gifted at this, and I'm one of those guys, okay, leave me alone. But I realized how many people thought they were anonymous and invisible in life.
Yeah.
And I realized that he had that rare ability. He'd walk into like a convenience store when everybody is not talking to anybody and they've got their energy drink and their coffee and their donut and they're zoned in. And he'll walk in and say, well, what the heck is going on today? He'd say. like today, for example, it's very blustery outside.
Uh-huh.
He'd say something like, well, who's going to be flying kites today? And somebody would look, and then he'd kind of joke with them, and he'd say, oh, I see you got the breakfast of champions today. And, and you realized that they were looking for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, not everybody. Some would say, leave me alone. And then I realized that he was a gift. The progressive guy, he or she's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people live lives of desperation. And when you can talk to them, and maybe you go to the same place every day to get your gas or whatever that is. If you're that guy, well, that's what your job is, to be
Mm-hmm.
that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add to that, I think we should diversify our 5 friends according to age. It's a bad idea to keep them all your same age, because when they die, now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I suggest trying to, if you can, finding somebody who is older, because they're going to tell you what's coming up, and younger, because they're going to help you move your refrigerator when you need to, right? That's always a good strategy.
Right.
Yeah. Rick, you no longer have to help me move my refrigerator.
Yeah, that's good.
But if you have kids from the football team, linemen, could you introduce me? Because I think they'd make great friends of mine.
I would agree. I would agree. Well, and you've likely heard this, Jeff, the Paul, the Barnabas, and the Timothy, 3 Bible characters. Paul, someone older that you can learn from. Barnabas, someone your age that you can relate to and actually would be an accountability partner for you. And then Timothy is that person that you're investing in, that you see promise in, that you say, hey, you've got a future and I want to help you. All of us should have, you're right, we should have different generations be a part of who we are. That's really what keeps the world going.
What would you say your line of work was in most of your life, Rick? A teacher?
Yeah, I was an educator. I like to say I was an educator, but I was a principal and a superintendent, and then I was in the Department of Ed for 5 years, and I was a dean at USD. So I was in a lot of leadership roles. But really, at the end of the day, Jeff, I'm discovering as on the back end of my life that probably all along I was a teacher. And I just masqueraded in other roles over time because that's what I was interested in doing, and maybe that's what the situation called for. But at the heart, I'm an educator and a teacher.
Was that hard for you to discover?
Yeah, it kind of was. It actually, I had to quit informal leadership roles. And when my wife and I started the Leadership South Dakota program, in 2014, and I started doing more teaching because we would travel to locations and, I would do some leadership modules while we were in those locations. I found out how much I loved it, missed it, and wished I would have done more of it earlier. So part of it is I had to quit doing everything else before I realized what my real passion was.
So, is that you? Somebody trying to get a hold of you?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So the reason I ask is finding out what you're made to do, your tuning fork moment, the thing that makes you fully who God made you to be, is not easy to find. How old were you when you found it?
Probably mid-50s.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, I didn't hate my work. It wasn't like I disliked my jobs. But when I got to the point where I was doing more teaching, I found out this is my sweet spot. I'm energized by it. It doesn't drain me. It energizes me. I look forward to it. When I was going through my work as an administrator, we had interview system that we would ask teachers when we were trying to hire teachers. And one of the questions in the interview was, when do you think about teaching? And the answer that we were looking for, that they said the best teachers would say, is all the time. Like, I'm thinking about teaching all the time. Like, if I'm at the grocery store.
Those of you who want to get an education, you're paying attention to that all the time.
All the time. Well, like, I go to the grocery store, I see something on the shelf, and I go, hey, I could use this as a prop in one of my lessons. I mean, like, everything that I see, every conversation I have can somehow be linked back to like, maybe I can use this in my classroom. And like they say, the best teachers use everything that they see and do as opportunities to teach.
The reason I'm really fascinated and encouraged by your answer, and you asked about the quarters of life. You know, the first quarter of life, very murky. What am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? Second quarter of life, super busy, super hectic, raising kids. Third quarter of life is now significance. Now you find out what you're absolutely great at.
Mm-hmm.
But I find in life there's like this fork in the road where people who are doing okay, like your last job, it was good, you were fine, and they say, well, maybe you should buy something. This is a signal for you to buy an RV or to get a vacation home or to do something. Well, really what it is, it's a chance for you to say, wait a minute, what am I actually excellent at? And although that's kind of a murky question, and especially something in our society, we don't like to ask murky things. When you talk to a guy at a gathering, you say, hey, so what do you do? Mm-hmm. You don't say, so what's your passion? Oh, like,
right.
Who are you? Right. But
right.
that's really the question we should be answering. What are you truly passionate about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also like, what are you sort of built to do? And then, decide you're going to do that and try to get as good as you can at it. Like, I feel like I'm built to do this. Now I just have to get really good at it, work hard at it, try to get better at it. Instead of kind of trying to go, well, I've got to do something else. No, you could be really good at what you do. Focus on that. I do a fair amount of DISC personality assessments, and I just have discovered, at least to me anyway, and I could be biased about it, but it's like, I think we're all wired to do certain things. Some of us are just more suited for detail, jobs that require high detail, fewer people, more engaged in numbers and spreadsheets. And other people are really built to be around people, and they're going to get their bucket full when they're, and then we tend to do the old Peter principle, where we sometimes elevate ourselves out of the area that we're really good at, because we think we need to move up the ladder.
Right.
And then we get up to the ladder and find out, I don't really enjoy this as much as I enjoyed, but I wanted to make more money, or I wanted more status, or I felt like it was the right thing to do. And we sometimes leave our passion behind. And I'm grateful that I got to rediscover it.
As maybe happened to you, because you became a teacher and then became administrator.
Yeah.
And
it seemed like the next logical step.
Sure. Yeah.
So
you glossed over this, Leadership South Dakota. And if you're not from South Dakota, that's a pretty big deal. You invented it with your wife, who you've never named. Do you know
Valerie.
her name? Oh, Valerie. Okay.
Yeah, I do know
I thought
her
maybe
name.
she was trying to live a life of reclusion there. Okay.
Oh, she's anything but that. So, yeah, her name is Valerie. So we've been married for 42 years, and I'm grateful for her every day. So,
how did you come up with this concept? You just hanging around at the kitchen table one day and says, "Hey, we should start a statewide thing to build up, leadership. What do you think?
Yeah.
Sounds good, honey. Let's go."
Yeah, let's do that.
What exactly happened?
Well, and the people in the program, when we ran it, would hear this story every year. But my wife and I were visiting friends in Chugwater, Wyoming. We had a couple that we knew well, and so we stopped by to see them one summer. And my friend Dan said, "Hey, I just finished a program called Leadership Wyoming." And I said, "So what is that?" He said, "Well, I want to run for the legislature, so I just thought I got to get to know the state better. And we have this program where we meet 6 different locations around the state for 2 or 3 days." And he showed me the booklet and the catalog and all the things that went on. And I was really intrigued by it. I was at the point where I was about ready to leave USD and trying to figure out what was going to be next in my career path. And on our way home, I could not get this idea out of my head. And I said to my wife, I think we should do this. I mean, like, this is a great program. You and I could do it together. I could do the teaching part. You could do the logistics, because she would do the hotels and the food and all that kind of stuff. And so we started talking to a few people that would be corporate sponsors. They were interested right away. We built some early momentum, and within a year, the program was up and running and it was going. And it was just such a great, I mean, I just give God a lot of credit, Jeff, for sort of right place, right time. A random conversation in Chugwater, Wyoming, produced a program that's now had probably 500 people in it. And still, it's just really a nice program if you want to learn about leadership and learn about our state, which it does both of those.
So every time you get a town together, when you're first incorporated and you first build a town, you get around, what should we call our town? And the people in Wyoming said, how about Chugwater? Did you ever find out?
No.
I mean, okay, wow.
No, I mean they're famous for Chugwater chili. There's a big Chugwater chili cook-off or whatever every year, but I have no idea how. I should ask Dan. Dan would know. I mean, my friend would know because he's a historian and a history buff. So the next time I talk to him, I'm going to have to ask him, tell me where the name came from, and he'll know.
Well, imagine if you eat enough chili, you'll have to chug water, I guess.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
suppose,
that's why the chili. Yeah, I have no idea.
So does every state have a leadership? But I'm just not aware of it. Is there a
No,
leadership?
not every state does. Some of them are women only, men only. Some of them are ag related only. There's probably, at the time that I was running the program, there's probably 40 states that had something like it, and we would gather on a semi-annual basis and compare ideas and strategies. What's working for you? What issues are you dealing with? The last one that we were a part of was in 2020 when we met. Our class met a better part of the year, and then we had to graduate virtually because COVID hit in March, and we graduated in March. But we met that, and then that whole following year of 21, we met. And so many of the other states were like, we didn't meet all year. And we were like, well, we've been meeting all year. And they couldn't believe that we would have done that. So you then really start to see how states are different in terms of how they view the world and how they manage themselves. But it was a wonderful program. I loved it. My wife and I loved every minute of it. And John Meyer's running it now and doing a really nice job.
The purpose of it is to what?
Kind of three things. One is network with other people, other leaders around the state. There's 40 people that are in the program every year. Two would be to learn about South Dakota. We visited 6 different cities every year and spend time learning about, and then learning about leadership. The third module, the third part was we do a little leadership training along the way. So it's networking, learning about our state, and learning about leadership.
How much of leadership can be learned?
I think a lot of it can be learned. I'd like to think you're talking to a teacher here, so you just say I think everything can be learned. I mean, I love to talk to people about can this be taught, or does it have to be caught? and I think a lot of things can be taught if the student is willing to learn. But if you're not willing to learn, I couldn't teach you anything if you're unwilling to learn. But if you're willing to learn, I think leadership can definitely be taught. But you also have to recognize, like, hey, every leader is different. Your leadership style is going to look different than mine because we're made differently and we're created differently. We have to surround ourselves with people that complement us and bring the skills that we don't have to the table. But I think it can definitely be taught.
What are the characteristics, the components, the personalities? What would you to say to make a great leader? You would like to have these components.
I think there's a lot of different things that you could think about there, and there's been thousands of books written about it. But the module, the leadership work that I do now, and we kind of focused on in Leadership South Dakota was, leading self, with the idea of like you really have to be focused on, am I the best version of myself going into this job? Do I know myself well? Am I taking care of myself? Am I doing the right things that I can control? And then the second part is leading others, and that's that whole idea of like, can you work with other people? I do work with some organizations where they promote people that are the best workers. but they aren't necessarily the best leaders because they do a good job in their job. But a big part of leading is leading others. They say if you're leading and no one's following, you're just taking a walk, right? You're really not leading. And so that idea of like, can I bring people with me? And then that's when you really get into the idea of like connecting with people and relating to people and showing appreciation, thinking about others before self. Then the third part is just that whole idea of leading a team, and are you able to bring groups of people together for a common purpose, and that's goal setting and understanding what what the qualities are of a good team. And then the last one is just having kind of the general characteristics that you need to be a good leader, and that's things like what I would call the dispositions, Jeff, work ethic, flexibility, coachability, being willing to think about others before yourself. When I was at USD in the teacher ed program, we had sometimes students that would do a good job in their coursework, but then they got out into student teaching and it didn't go so well because they didn't have the dispositions that they needed to really they had the content knowledge, but they really didn't have the ability to apply it. And that whole idea of like leading with purpose is about, can I really apply the things that I've learned in a setting that's related to my leadership?
So you're a principal. You like to hire the right person. I have a friend of mine, Jim Riefenberger, who says, well, it's like a pie with three pieces. You gotta hire the right person, then you have to have the right leadership, and then they have to be trained. You have to have the right kind of training.
Mm-hmm.
And we hire people and kind of forget about it, or we don't. We train them but don't hire well, and we always blame the hiring mechanism. That guy was a dud, and I never should have hired them. But when you realize that's just a third of it, and now I'll put you on the hot seat, Principal Melmer, whose job it was to hire the teachers. And your job is to watch. So by full disclosure, my wife was a teacher. I have 4 daughters. 3 of them are in teaching. Wow. So I know well that's about awesome. The being observed. Awesome. Yeah, they're nice kids. They're doing great things in the world.
Mm-hmm. They're making the world a better place.
And they will talk about getting observed. And they will talk about the principles. And I'm not going to say any names, but some were good and some weren't so good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make a person better by observing them? Okay, this guy, obviously, how do you come alongside them? And maybe what was your success rate? Were you able to hire and keep 100% of them? Where were you at?
No, you sure didn't keep 100% of them. At least I didn't. And the philosophy that I tried to illustrate with the folks that I worked with is that we're going to hire people. And then in South Dakota, where I spent most of my time as a leader, we had they said in our state the 4th year is when you get what's called continuing contract, meaning you are sort of a member in good standing. You can still be terminated, but it would be more difficult. You're entitled to a hearing in front of the board if the principal or a superintendent wanted to terminate you. But in the first 3 years, you could be terminated without cause. In other words, at the end of the year, you could just say, we don't think you're made of the right stuff. We're going to terminate your contract, move on to somebody else. And so I used to work with our principals and say, we've got 3 years to really focus in on who are the people that we think are keepers. And let's make sure we build them up and keep them. And then if they aren't that way, our students deserve the best. And so we should have the courage to say, sorry, this isn't going to work out for you. We're going to go out and try to find somebody else. And they're going to land on their feet. They're going to find something else to do. So I kind of took the probationary window and said, let's really be intentional to find out, does this person have the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to be the kind of teacher that we want to have in our district going forward? And if they don't have it, as you've likely heard before, Jeff, the best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. So if you don't see something in the first 3 years, the likelihood of seeing it in year 4, 5, or 6 isn't very good. So, but it took courage, and it wasn't always pleasant to let people go. And it didn't happen a lot, but it happened because that's the only way you're going to build a good team is to keep the ones that are doing the work and then trying to find replacements for those that couldn't.
Well, I have a question I kind of call behind the curtain. You probably have some perspectives that the rest of the country doesn't have, who has not been in teaching and education. What is something you would say to a parent or a taxpayer or a person? What is it that people maybe aren't seeing that you would like them to see about teaching, education?
Well, the Junior Achievement Program has been around for a long time, and you're likely familiar with it. But anybody that's ever gotten in front of a group of students and tried to get them all heading in the same direction on an assignment or something to do would leave that room in 45 minutes or an hour and go, that's a tough job. And I just don't think people appreciate the complexity of teaching and how difficult it is to get students of different levels, because they don't all come in at the same level. Your children and your wife would know this, that you have students from abilities that are low ability to high ability. They're all in the same room. You're trying to get them all heading in the same general direction. You have to individualize in some cases. You have to manage discipline in other cases. And by the way, as the family goes, so goes the schools in the school district. And families are in more turmoil now than ever before. So the jobs are more difficult than ever before. So I just don't think the taxpayers understand the complexity of teaching. And the only way you would is if you taught, if you literally got up in front of a room and tried to teach. And some of them think, well, I teach Sunday school, so I know what it's like. No, you don't. That's a whole different, this is a different world when students, by the way, compulsory attendance, they're not there by choice. They're there because they're expected to be there. And you don't always get support from parents. And so it is a very tough job. And frankly, if I have something that keeps me up at night now, Jeff, it is, are we going to be able to find good educators 20 years from now to do this job? Because it's getting tougher and tougher to find them.
So to wrap a bow around what you're saying, you're seeing more dysfunction in the society / families. And when a dysfunctional family has a kid and that kid has to go to your school and sit in your class, you're adding extra levels of turmoil. And when you multiply that kid by 30, now you've got a job.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yeah. Now you have a task. And you don't have a choice to kind of go, well, I'm going to just take a little time out. These kids are sitting there and you're on the spot to provide the best education you can. And they're not all willing learners. And I don't fault the students. I mean, a lot of it is environmental. But, we used to say to the educators, students don't leave their problems at the door when they come in. They're bringing them in with them, and you're going to inherit those problems and have to manage them the best you can. We have a daughter that's a teacher, and it's a really tough job, and it's not getting easier.
Maybe it's an extremist statement, but one of my daughters said the system's broken, and she's prone to maybe say that larger thing. So I asked it to one of my other daughters, who tends to be a little more, diplomatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, is it a broken system? And she paused, and I thought this was the most sobering thing I've heard. Yeah. Wow. And they're good teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
So, I mean, if you could wave a wand, what do you do? If you were the captain of improving education, and I gave you a certain amount of power, not infinite power, because I don't trust you that much, but no, what can you see a solution? What would you say?
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of things, Jeff. Complex problems cannot be solved with simple solutions. So I know the standard answer is, well, we got to raise teacher pay. I mean, if you raise teacher pay, you're going to get better people teaching because they're more attracted to the salary. That's not, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here with a man that's surrounded by educators. They didn't go into it for the money. That's, they were built to teach, and that's what they want to do. I think the key would be to get better leaders at the helm of every school and every school district. And I think we have very good leaders out there, but they also are becoming more difficult to find because the job is more difficult for them too. I mean, like they're dealing with parents and they're dealing with societal issues, they're managing technology, how to keep phones in or out, AI, how do you manage that? There's just a lot of pressure on administrators. But I have found that, and I'd be interested to have you ask your daughters later on, if you have a good boss, the job is a little bit more tolerable. Like it's not easy, it's always going to be difficult. But if you know there's a man or a woman down the hall that's got my back, I can manage this. I can do it as long as I know I've got backup. But if I don't have backup, then the system is broken. Then a teacher would say, I don't know what the answer is because I don't have any support. And I think they want support. They also want more money. That would be human nature. We all want to get paid more. But I think it's more about providing the kind of support and respect that teachers need and deserve would go a long way. And I don't know if I can wave a magic wand to get that, but that's to me what would make a big difference.
Well, I'll say, I think that what you said about having a good boss works for every occupation I ever saw.
Absolutely.
I mean, 70% of your job is if you got a good boss.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be making cardboard boxes in a room somewhere.
Right.
And if you got a good boss, it's kind of fun. In fact, I think one of the top employers in the nation actually makes cardboard boxes. So somehow they've made a job that, I don't mean to disparage it, but you're just making a cardboard box. I shouldn't say you're making a cardboard box, but they see it in a way, and they got a culture. I don't know how they got this, and they got bosses. I don't know how they get this, but they love their job really because of the boss.
Yeah.
I'll just say one thing about education that is unlike any occupation I've ever been in. No, I never taught. Okay, not true. I taught swim lessons for a summer when I was a kid throughout the years. And this is what you know about regular work. It's possible to go into work and the day flies by. If you have a regular job, that 8 hours can fly by, depends on the day. But when you teach, you can't fly through the day because every 45 minutes or hour, you are forced to stop. Now, 45 minutes can fly by.
Yeah.
But that whole day is stopped and started, many times during the day. And as you said, if in one of those 45, 50-minute segments, you're working with anything society puts in your room, that's not an endurance. That is a sprint. That's a sprint.
Right.
And then the bell goes off. And maybe you got some prep time to kind of stretch out and get the next one. But if you have a really good class that's fun, you could. Are you going to have that every single hour, every single day? No. And so you see why, I see why that summer to refresh is essential. And I would also say an opportunity, because many of the greatest entrepreneurs I've met started out in teaching. Right. So they had those 3 months in the summer to say, well, I want to try something different. And then they transitioned, and the skills they learned at the classroom about teaching, invaluable to building a business.
Right. Right.
So I'm going to say I'm going to move to our next segment here. Okay. You're buying. You can take anybody in the world out to lunch. They have to be alive. And you're going to take them to lunch, and you're going to pick up the tab unless they offer. My last guest said Shaquille O'Neal, partly because Shaquille O'Neal always buys. That's cheating. I mean, you can take him out, but it's not fair to assume he's going to buy the meal. So who are you going to take out to eat, and where are you going to go?
Well, I mean, I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball. I'm a Yankee fan in particular.
Oh no, we have to stop the interview right now.
Really,
All
yeah.
right.
Okay, yeah. And
You know,
Aaron Judge is my guy. I mean, he's a captain of the team. He's just appears on all levels to be an awesome human being. And so I would probably pick him, and I would probably say to him in New York, where do you want to go? We'll get a corner table somewhere where nobody will bother us, which is a joke. And then I could ask him a few questions about what is it like to play for the Yankees and be a cat. I mean, everybody that is on the team just says great things about this guy, and adopted, raised by adoptive parents, and so I don't know if he knows his birth mother, birth father. I'd be curious to know that. There'd be a lot of questions I would ask him, but a lot of them wouldn't be baseball related. They would be a little bit more about how do you manage the pressure, how do you sort of do business with the fact that you're raised in an adoptive home, and how have you helped other people go through that. So I don't know how much we talk about baseball. We talk a lot more about life and leadership.
well, and I guess I would always ask this of a athlete. It must be unsettling to know that you'll spend 2/3 of your life retired
Yeah,
doing what you're second best at. Now, you won't need the money,
right.
but you will need a reason to get up in the day. I just
Mm-hmm.
saw an article somebody sent me about Michael Phelps as an example.
Yeah.
It's a dark hole that a lot of these people go into when they are their occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he is Aaron Judge, he's not really Aaron Judge. He's Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not like he's an actor where he even gets to change his name and say, I'm not that character. He has become his character, but his character isn't necessarily him. And so how does he walk that? And how does he maintain a level of sanity? Because, and I mean, it's all fans, but fans, I mean, the word comes from fanatic. They're just a little crazy.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you are not responsible for somebody else's, emotions, but fans think that you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on a losing streak, they go into a depression.
Yeah.
If you don't make the playoffs, they get mad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And in New York,
we could
they aren't
learn.
afraid to say, yeah.
Yeah, we could learn from these guys on how to handle failure, because they in Major League Baseball, you get a hit 3 times out of 10, and so that means 7 times you're striking out or making an out in some way. And that idea of like, how do you manage failure? How do you know that you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed? And how do you remain positive through all of that? It just would be fun conversation to have with someone at that level. Anyway, that's my choice.
You went back to, well, let's talk a little bit about going back to leadership, because I think humility is underappreciated in so many parts of life. And what I don't care about various, leadership, whatever, is that there seems to be a certain level of pride in having the corner office and having the label. And I always say, and I want your comment on this, I would say there is no such thing as good leadership. It's good followership.
Mm-hmm.
And I base that on Christian principles. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can say that I'm a leader, but the question would be, talk to the people that you're leading and ask them if you're a leader or not, because that's really the true test, is going to be, will they follow? If they, and there's that idea of position power and personal power. And position power is, I'll do it because he or she is telling me I have to, and I want to keep my job. Personal power is like, I'm doing it because I want to please my boss. Like, my boss asked me to do it, and I'm going to do it because of that. That's my main reason for doing it. And that, to me, it's that personal power that really separates the best leaders from the others. Is, most of us are pretty obedient people. We'll do what the boss tells us to do as long as it's not immoral or impractical. But boy, doing it because you want your boss to be successful, because you think your boss wants you to be successful, that's like you said, Jeff, that's followership. That's that idea that we're in this together. It's not, you're telling me what to do, but we're working together to try to accomplish something.
And that component, I mean, okay, is it always top down?
No.
No.
No. In fact, one of the things that we talked about in Leadership South Dakota, it was actually a lesson that I learned in the program. One of our speakers talked about the idea of you can lead from the front or you can lead from the back. And there's two different ways to lead. And, in our state, are you from South Dakota?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bill Janklow would be an example, former governor, kind of a lead from the front guy. I mean, like big personality, bull, in fact, I think his statue in Pierre, he's got a bullhorn in his hand. And, that's sort of that's the picture you have of Bill Janklow's leadership style. And then you have I'll just say Dennis Dugard would be a more current governor who I think led more from the back, very much a leader in every sense of the word, but would do more of what do we need to do? What does our state need? Oh, we need to raise teacher salaries. Then let's create a tax that would help us bump those salaries up. I mean, he led from the back in terms of, I don't need the credit. It's not always going to be my idea. I'm going to try to figure out what our organization, in this case, what our state needs. And then I'm going to help us get there. And so I do think there's two ways to lead. You can lead from the front, and it's my idea, my way, we're doing it. And by the way, those leaders can be successful. It works. Or you can lead from the back, which is like, I'm going to pay attention to what the needs are, and then I'm going to build a coalition of people to go accomplish those objectives. And I tend to be a lead from the back guy. That's sort of what I subscribe to, and I think that's still the best recipe. But some people are built to lead from the front, and and they can do that, and it can happen.
I had coffee with Governor Dugard just the other day. Nice man.
Yeah, well, he's a wonderful man, and really humble. I mean, all the qualities, Jeff, that you would say a really good leader should have. Yeah.
Best piece of advice you ever got?
A lot of advice, but one of them, when I was in graduate school at the University of Wyoming, one of our professors, who was actually, he was the superintendent in Rapid City when a variety of things happened. The Rapid City flood happened. There was an organization called AIM, the American Indian Movement. They had a riot, like a disturbance. He was the superintendent during that time. He was also the superintendent. They had a flood, or not a flood, a fire where the high school burned down. And he had, and then by the way, the 6 cheerleaders, the Spirit of 6 award, he was the superintendent when that plane went down. So he had all of these things that happened during his time as superintendent in Rapid City, and he told these captivating stories. But one of the pieces of advice I remember him saying is, people are going to believe the first story they hear. So if you have news to deliver to someone, you need to be the one to tell them, because they're going to believe your story better than they're going to believe anybody else's story. If you wait and let other people tell the story, folks are going to believe their version of it versus your version of it. So he was a big believer in getting out in front of issues and trying to, capture the language versus allowing other people to talk about it, and then you coming in later and trying to clean the slate. I thought it was really good advice, and it's worked for me both on the personal level and on the professional level.
And really, wow, especially today, since everybody's a newspaper, and there's a lot of people who they'll tell any story they want. So to get out in front of it with the first story, hopefully it's a true story, you're not making it up.
Right.
A guy like that, I'd have fired right away, because he's the most unlucky superintendent I've ever heard in my life. What in the world?
It was amazing.
You did what?
It was amazing. Yeah. And he was an awesome guy, and but he knew what it was like to go through. He said at the flood, he had to go in and identify bodies, because he said, I knew a lot of people in Rapid City, so I'd go into this shed and there'd be lines and lines of bodies, and I had to walk down the line and with a person going, do you know any of these people? Yeah, it was, those were amazing stories. I'm wondering when I get to ask you a question. When does that happen?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're out of time. No. Can I just give a quick anecdote there?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that everybody's got a good story and you can learn from everybody. And I think especially people in the third and fourth quarter have to become more assertive about sharing their stories with people in the first quarter. People in the first quarter of life think it's really going badly, probably because this is the first story they're being told, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did a service once for this gal. They called her the Great Dane. She was Danish, and she was not very tall, small Spitfire, and she was just iron. They didn't have any money. Her kid had one shirt and one shirt only. And every night she'd re-iron and re-wash that. And he looked like the classiest dresser in school. Well, he only had one white shirt and it was pressed. He wore it every single day. And these were the kind of strategies that she had. And they were out in Rapid City, South Dakota. I think the year is 1970. And if you look it up, it is one of the major disasters in the nation, basically a huge rainstorm. And it fell out of nowhere and nobody saw it coming. And Rapid City, the town, there's a river that runs through it and it jumps the banks. And how many people died in that, Rick?
Good question. I don't remember, Jeff. If I tried to guess, I'd be wrong. So
yeah,
hundreds. I think it was hundreds.
Yeah. It was 3 digits. Wasn't 1,000, but it's an enormous calamity. Anyway, she is the mother-in-law for a girl who was 19 and 9 months pregnant. And everybody had gone out shopping when the rain hit. And they couldn't, and this is before cell phones, communication was knocked out. Where is the family coming? And then they're starting to hear all of the drownings. And this 19-year-old girl starts to panic and go into labor. Now imagine this Great Dane. She gets up in her face and she said, "Oh, no, you don't. You." And she just looked into her eyes and said, "Calm down now. You are not going to have this baby." And she calmed down, start breathing. And she, through the force of her will, got this girl to calm down. And she says, "Now, I want you to hear what I'm going to say right now. In the morning, we're going to walk to the armory and we're going to walk to the school and we're going to see if we can find our family, because this is where they would, as you talked to,
I know,
have the bodies laid out for identification." Yeah. And she said, "Are you ready?" And that 19-year-old girl said, okay. Mm-hmm. And then the family walked in. They were all fine.
Yeah.
But in the world, I know you think you have it tough. I know you do. Mm-hmm. But there's somebody who's like 40, 50 years older than you. Right. They can tell you some stories.
Yeah.
And when they tell you those stories, you'll go, well, wait a minute. If they can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. And so we are encouraging. We are pushing courage into another group. Well, so, I mean, the deal's the deal.
Good.
Rick.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask. It's only one question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ask one question. That's it.
Yep. So I understand you. I understand that you give a lot of messages at funerals, mm-hmm. right? And so this is really, first of all, my dad ran a grocery store for 30 years or 40 years, but he originally wanted to be a mortician. That he told me that was my dream as a young man. And it just didn't work out. I don't know why it didn't work out, but it didn't work out. You end up in a grocery store, ran a good business. We had a nice family business for a lot of years. But I've always been sort of intrigued with that line of work, that you're a person that speaks at funerals. You talk to families before you speak because you want to get a flavor for the person that you're speaking about. I just want to know what themes have you picked up through all these conversations at this stage of life when they're talking about a loved one who's no longer with them? Like, what really matters? What are some themes that you picked up to say, here's what I've learned from doing this? How many years have you done it? You've done it, I'm sure, for years, right?
Well, I never kept exact track, but it's over 20.
Okay.
And if I
And how
use
many
rough,
funerals approximately?
if I use rough math, it's 700. Yeah.
So, I mean, so you should write a book about this, but at the same time, the idea of like, what have you
The
right
orange
there?
book that he's talking about and the blue book are now available for
There we
sale
go.
on
Yeah.
my website.
And this has not been rehearsed, by the way. So, so I just want to know what have you learned? What are some things that you would say? Yeah, here's a couple of takeaways for me that just keep coming up over and over again.
Well, first off, I would suggest to you personally, Rick, and to anybody who's watching, there is a need for celebrants. I would say about 70% of people do not have a church they go to on a regular basis.
Mm.
And when somebody dies, they are at the face of eternity. And that's a heavy lift that is beyond most people's ability to carry. So you must listen carefully, honor the life that was lived, pull out pieces of advice to help other people live the best version of their stories, and then plant some seeds of faith and pull some weeds because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So that's kind of basically your job. Rick, you should consider doing it. Number one, you should consider doing it because you would be fascinated at it. First, you do a great job. As a teacher, your job is to teach, this time to the people who are gathered, what you've learned from this life. But then, and the only thing is you couldn't bring Valerie with you because it would be odd to have your wife there. But what happens is I will go home and tell my wife, Libby,
right,
listen to what I saw. And she'll say, well, you met with the family. How'd that go?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's what happens. You're a stranger who walks into the room. You shake hands all the way around. You sit down and you usually ask the first question, what happened? And then they talk about how they passed away. And then you start asking questions. You know, I see that they grew up here. I see they did this. And you start asking, well, what was a word you used to describe them? Were they an early riser? And you just start asking, you know, what kind of music, what kind of food, what they do for hobbies. And in about an hour and a half, you see something that you hardly ever see anywhere else. You see the truth. That entire life has been laid out for you in about 90 minutes.
Mm.
And you're writing down as fast as you can, scripts and scraps and so on. You're like, well, there it is.
Yeah.
And you just sit with that and go, my. And sometimes you go, wow. And you go home and you tell your wife and she'll go, wow, that's a great story. And a lot of times they'll go,
Mm-hmm.
when they say, well, that's a good story because there's wisdom on both sides, right? I think what it is, people, generally speaking, are going to do what they're going to do. You can't pull the mask off of somebody else. They're not going to let you do it. They're not going to follow your advice, Mr. Fourth Quarter, right? No, they're never going to follow your advice. A guy said to me the other day, I'm waiting for somebody to ask for my advice. They're just not going to do it. But they might.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best thing you can do is learn from their life and change your life, right? When you see somebody who drinks a lot of alcohol and you see it over and over and over and over again, you get to say to yourself, okay, is this really a good habit?
Mm-hmm.
When you see them eat, and they die overweight, you get to say, was this a good habit?
Mm-hmm.
When you see somebody who, made fortunes in many, many businesses, but his family will not talk to each other and all they're talking about is the money, you get to say, is that it?
Yeah.
And my life has fundamentally changed because of simply observing all of those lives and saying, will that be me?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to be me? I like stories. I really love stories that have a good character movement, where the character moves and advances. And I look at my own life as a story, and I'm still advancing. And I think that's kind of exciting.
Right.
I'm not where I want to go yet. I think the best way to say it is I'm not satisfied with the progress, but I am content with the process. And so I sit down in the morning. I'm not as I would say that I look at you as a guy who's like, a couple of steps ahead. If we were running a race, I'd see you're about 200 yards ahead of me.
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say
and I'm
that.
thinking like I might, if I figure out a couple of things in the next couple of curves, I think I can take Melmer out. But I feel like
I can catch him.
I feel like you're gonna get a better time in than me, but that's okay. And so I would say, and I'm being serious, you would love it.
Because I'm the wheels are turning as you're talking about this, Jeff. I'm just kind of going, I wonder about that. I didn't know that there was a need for it.
Oh yeah. And and so it's part-time work, literally, because you get like 3 days. Can you do this? I say, yes, I'll do this. I want to meet with the family the day before, and I want to do this service the next day.
Yeah.
And 30, I get asked probably 70 times a year. I'm able to do it about 30 to 40 times a year.
Okay. Yeah.
And even so, that is a lot of game tape.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, interesting. I was curious about it because to me, it's kind of a fascinating. You're catching people at a time when, like you say, the masks are off. It's real, and you see all kinds of emotions and everything else, and of course you got elderly, which is more of a celebration of life. But you have, I'm sure you've done funerals of young children or people well before their time. That just seems like there's a real injustice.
Murders, suicides, stupid activity that ends in death, crime, dysfunction, tremendous redemption stories you'll see. It's life-changing work. I mean, literally, it changed my life.
Mm-hmm. I can believe it. I can believe it would. Yeah. And I need to get on your website.
Oh, you mean my website? IlikethatStory.net?
Yes. That's the one.
Also, IlikethatStory.com, because I've got both of them.
Okay.
In fact, if you have a QR code, you could do this, and we'll get this up.
Yeah.
Booker will do a good job of making sure everybody gets that. Okay.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So the books I wrote are about that issue, and I do my speaking when I do training. I basically talk about the 4 quarters of life, because even though they're different lives, the pattern is remarkably similar. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, I know. And you just recognize that. And you see, and you recognize that and recognize that. And what's most interesting, theoretically, we're not dominoes. Theoretically, if I knock this domino over, that works on dominoes. It shouldn't work on people. It's remarkable how well that works on people. People should be able to not follow the inevitable, but they seem incapable of breaking out of habit.
Right.
And it's sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you could deliver any karaoke song, and I mean, you go on the stage and you're ripping it, and you can sing this song and people go, wow, that was amazing. What's going to be the song?
Well, it would probably be a song that a lot of people haven't heard before. I'm an Elton John fan. I like Elton John. And he has a song called "The Club at the End of the Street." And if you heard it, you'd hear it, obviously, but it's got a great rhythm. I can't sing anywhere like Elton John, but
you could for that day.
If I could for that day, that would be the song I'd belt out. "The Club at the End of the Street" by Elton John.
And because during the Lenten season, I'm always trying to add to my list of books. I have a metaphor you see above here. Let's just say I have a shelf, and it's going to hold the 100 best books I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And if I read one that's better, one of those books is getting knocked off the shelf. So I'm drawing, these are the best 100.
Okay.
Give me a book that you really recommend.
Okay. So a nonfiction book would be From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. And it ties right into, Jeff, your kind of fourth quarter, recognize where you're at in life. And it's pretty sobering in terms of talking about how quickly we start to lose our edge. Your 40s and 50s.
Wait a minute.
I know. It was really hard for me to read that. But From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks was a great book, and just really, I thought it was fascinating in terms of just talking about trying to figure out what you're really good at and then pursue those things.
Is it available in large print?
I'm sure it is.
For my older friends.
I understand. Yeah, for people that you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I prefer the 3-point font if I can find it. But
it's worth the read for sure. Yeah.
Well, Rick, what can I do for you? Is there anything, something that you can pour out that I can steer you've pitched me about 5 softballs that I've been able to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would just enjoy having coffee sometime after we're done with this. I would enjoy. I'm going to grab one of your books and read that, and then I'd love to have coffee sometime. I'd enjoy it.
Is that going to be under the "you're buying" part of it?
Yes.
One of my questions. No,
yes.
I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
We can go.
I'd be happy to.
I'd be happy to buy you a cup of coffee of regular drip American coffue at any drive-through in town.
Starbucks is a place, and I've got a QR code. We're good to go.
All right.
So
all right, that sounds good.
Not a problem.
Right.
I'd enjoy it.
Well, Rick, thanks very much for your time. God bless.
Thanks. Same to you, Jeff. Thank you.
There's nothing that's quite as good as an unasked for plug. Did you hear Rick talking about my books back here and all the different classes I teach? Well, you can go to my website, ilikethatstory.com. It's all laid out for you like a kid in a candy store, books that talk about the things I've learned from funerals and the keynote addresses I give that talk in many ways to the same thing that Rick's is talking about, the themes to getting the most out of your story. How exactly does that happen? And how can that help your family, yourself, and your business? So if you have any questions on that, you want to buy any of this stuff on the website, books included, masterclasses, devotionals, have at it. Until we actually meet, I'm Jeff Gould. Thank you for your time. God bless.